So I think we have everyone here now. Good morning, good day, good evening. Let me begin by welcoming everyone to this celebration of the International Women's Day by the Common Fund for Commodities. This has become a tradition at the CFC that we organize a virtual event to highlight the themes centered around inclusion, investment in women, and the acceleration of progress towards gender equality. Before I proceed further, allow me to introduce myself first. My name is Paula White. I work as Technical Assistant Facility Manager with the CFC, and I will be guiding you through this event today. For this coming hour, I would like to advise you all on a couple of basic housekeeping rules first. Kindly use the mute function if you're not speaking. Later, we plan to have a moment for questions and answers, so please make a note of any questions you have for after the presentation. The UN theme for International Women's Day 2024 is Count Her In, Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress, which aligns with the priority theme of the United Nations 68th Commission on the Status of Women. This theme underscores the importance of investing in women as a critical step towards accelerating progress in achieving gender inequality and empowering all women and girls. This also aligns with the mission of the CFC, and we are delighted to contribute to the global action. Please allow us to start today's event off with a short video. Great. I'd like to express thanks to our colleague Michelle for her hard work in creating this great video. I would now like to invite the Managing Director of the CSC to give his welcoming remarks. Ambassador Sheikh Mohammed Bilal was elected as Managing Director of the Common Fund for Commodities in December 2019 and was recently re-elected again for a second term in December 2023. Prior to this date, Ambassador Bilal served as Ambassador of Bangladesh to the Netherlands with concurrent accreditations to Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, and before that in various capacities in Bangladesh missions in Washington, Canberra, Kuala Lumpur, and Tashkent. Ambassador Bilal is a member of the Board of Directors of the Trust Fund for Victims of the International Criminal Court since December 2018. He is also a member of the International Gender Champions and committed to the Parity Pledge of the International Gender Champion. Ambassador Bilal obtained a master's in public administration from Harvard University in the USA, a master's in international relations and trade from Monash University in Australia, and also did his graduation in forestry at Chittagong University in Bangladesh. Ambassador Bilal, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you. I hope that was the person who is me. Excellency, Ambassador Sahar Ghanem, thank you for making yourself available, and that too in person for this webinar. It's very grateful. Thank you. Excellencies, Madam Chairperson of the Governing Council, Chairperson of the Executive Board, distinguished governors, alternate governors, executive directors and alternate, members of Team CFC, members of CFC families, and more importantly for me, my lab, my wife, Dr. Dilruba Nasrin, I am happy to see that joining me from her field in Mali, Africa. Thank you. Happy International Women's Day to all of you, and more to the man. For us in the CFC, this day assumes a significance that we hesitate to attach to any other day except for that of the International Day for the Alleviation of Poverty, which is globally celebrated on October 17. The specter of poverty is at the level of women is hardly even visible. For those of us who grew up in an extended family of 5 or 6 with a limited income, we saw that at the time, but did not realize much. The culture of mother not joining the lunch or dinner. She is the last to take the meal, making sure that everyone else in the house had it for themselves. This is also the time she would lie with a smile in the face to say that she had it full like us. I know for many of you, it may not make sense, but please make sure that you and your children visit the commodity producing women in the harsh contour of the developing world. You will get a sense of the agony of living in poverty for generations. How absurd it is for a cent or a penny is going back to the farmers, say for a cup of coffee that you and I buy for 3 or 4 euro a cup. While their contribution is much bigger than their income, after working so hard in the field, the need to rush to all the staked up chores in the family, from feeding the infant to wash clothes for the whole village by hand. For women in the village, even the good news of technological improvements come as a bad news of reduced income for them, because man will use the tiller or the motor for irrigations. In a research in India, it was found that with a 10% increase in mechanized tilling led to a 5% fall in women's farm labor use, with no accompanying increase in their non-farm sector employment. Now, with the war and the conflicts, triggered high cost of inflation and debt servicing in the developing world. News are there, her parents are pulling out their children from school to substitute for farm work. And without a guess, you'll know if the parents have to make a choice between the girl and the boy, it is the girl who will most often leave the school first. I will try to make short my statement because you are here to listen to our keynote speaker. So I'll try to be as brief as I can. But unfortunately, that poverty sea is so wide open. They are in the every dots of the commodity chains that we work with. We have been dealing with it, but we can hardly do anything about it as the free market give it a pass when it comes to the income to the farmers. I wish our farmers, like was yours, that means yours, when the European farmers, had the capacity to make the policymakers accept their only demand, I reiterate, is to bridge the long gap between the farm gate and the final price. For me, this is the highway to leave no one behind with higher income to the 2.5 billion smallholders who work so hard to make us feed, dress, move, or even talk with the copper mining with their bare hands in Africa. We draw huge inspiration from the workings of poor economists. Allow me to say, so women who worked harder to liberate people from poverty. Indeed, it is not known much, but out of 64 women who got awarded Nobel Prize from 1901 to 2023, a vast majority of them, compared to men, worked in the field that relates to bring more income for the poor and the hungry. Distinguished guests, as we gather here today to celebrate International Women's Day, it is my honor to address you on a theme that lies at the heart of this occasion: inspire inclusion. Inclusion is not merely a buzzword or a box to tick. It is a fundamental principle that should guide our actions and decisions every day. In rural families around the world, women are the backbone, the unsung heroes who tirelessly work to sustain their households and communities. It is too often their voices are marginalized, their contributions overlooked, and their needs neglected. Inclusion means ensuring that every woman, regardless of her background and circumstances, have a seat at the table, a voice that is heard, respected, and valued. Excellencies, before I introduce our keynote speaker, allow me to compliment my colleague Paula, the moderator of today's event, and our distinguished participants. Distinguished guests, now it is my absolute honor to present to you our keynote speaker, Excellency Sahar Ghanem, Ambassador of Yemen to the Netherlands. She is also the Yemen's governor to the Common Fund for Commodities, as well as permanent representative of Yemen to the Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, OPCW. She is a career diplomat, and before taking up her current post, she worked at the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, and United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA. Where she was a coordinator of a project aimed at empowering Yemeni women by delivering their voices to the decision makers in the transition process and the national dialogue that followed the 2011 uprising in Yemen. Ms. Ghanem's latter role, expertise, and activism qualified her to be elected to represent the revolutionist youth at the National Dialogue Conference 2013 and 2014 as a member of the State Building Group. One of Ms. Ghanem's last roles in the government of Yemen was as an advisor on women, youth, and civil society affairs at the former Prime Minister's Bureau. She is known for being a political activist and feminist. We are honored to have her as our keynote speaker. Today, on the need to empower the women and smallholders and our pathway to sustainable agriculture and prosperity. Last but not least, I also thank Ms. Ana Herrera for joining us today as a speaker to enlighten us with how this works in practice through our investment in Canema, a very innovative and climate-sensitive business in the Philippines. Ms. Ana Herrera is the team lead of the CASA Technical Assistance Facility managed by TechnoServe that supports Canema. She oversees program and design and implementation of inclusive business and strategies of partner agribusiness covering farmer development programs, aggregator and agent models, financial inclusions, digitalizations, climate initiatives. Ms. Ana brings over 2 decades of experience in international development with expertise in corporate sustainability, non-profit management, and the operationalization of complex commercial strategies in Africa and Asian markets. She is based in Accra, Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, it is my great honor to introduce finally to our keynote speaker, Her Excellency Ms. Sahar Ghanem. Over to you, madam.
Thank you, dear Ambassador Bilal, for introducing me. Good afternoon to everyone from here in Amsterdam, or maybe good morning or good evening, it depends on your location. But thank you so much also being with us today, although it is very sunny day, those who are at least here in the Netherlands. For a long time, we had no sunny days. So thank you for being with us. Thank you very much. And instead of enjoying your day, it is a very special day. And I'm very honored to be here today. And allow me please to start without further ado, just for the time constraint. So, Excellencies, dear colleagues in the Common Fund for Commodities, esteemed guests and dear friends and advocates for gender equality, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I wish to express my deep thanks to the Managing Director of the Common Fund for Commodities, His Excellency Ambassador Sheikh Mohammed Bilal, who is first of all a dear friend of mine, and also to the entire CFC colleagues for giving me this opportunity to speak on the momentous occasion of International Women's Day. And before we delve deeper into the plight of female smallholder farmers, allow me to introduce myself. I am Sahar Ghanem, the Yemeni ambassador to the Netherlands, but also non-resident ambassadors to Sweden and Norway. I am recently been appointed as the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps in the Netherlands, which is also a great honor for me. I'm privileged to be serving this role. I'm speaking today with you. I am filled with an overwhelming sense of gratitude and determination. Gratitude for the extraordinary women who have blazed trails, shattered glass ceilings, and fought tirelessly for equality. And determination to continue the journey toward a world where every woman and girls can live with full dignity, respect, and equal opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues, today we celebrate the strength, the resilience, and indispensability of women in our communities, including those who are vital contributors to our global food security system, women, smallholder farmers, and their daughters. As a Yemeni woman, myself, I am deeply proud of every single woman and girl who strive to have a prominent role in their societies, despite the challenges and difficulties. I'm deeply proud of Mrs. Yasmin Saeed and her honorable mother from Lahj Governorate's Bir Amir district, who brought up on the importance of working on their family farm and grow onions, okra, and others, with selling crops to cover her family's basic needs, despite the challenges including the risk of injury while fetching water or harvesting crops. I am deeply proud of Mrs. Rola Abdullah, a widowed mother of 4 children from Al-Shamatain districts in the city of Taiz, who turned to agricultural sector to start her own farm to grow tomatoes, cucumber, chili peppers, and other crops as her only source of income to feed her 4 children. The impressive part of Rola's story is not only her successful farming, but also her impressive adaptation to the devastating impact of climate change, which led her to lose half of the harvest. But she never loses her determination. Despite the climate change impacts, including the heavy downpours, strong winds, and thunderstorms, as well as agricultural pests and insects, she rehabilitated her farm and adapted new methods, including placing a tarpaulin, a mesh protective net for crops, and electric generators and a drip irrigating system. Prominently, I am honored, and I really honor the memory who passed away, Mrs. Amna Al-Amrani, and that's very special story from Yemen. Amna Al-Amrani is an illiterate rural woman who challenged the strong tribal traditions and became the biggest, seriously the biggest, not only for, exaggerating sometimes, we like to give names, but she was really the biggest wholesale fruit broker in Yemeni markets for 3 decades. And owned the title of Queen of Oranges in Yemen, not competing with the royal family of Orange, but that was because it was her specialty in the beginning, the orange trading. Her business was not limited to Yemen, but she also exported the Yemeni fruits to the Arab Gulf countries, Egypt, and Sudan. And that led to her being interviewed and covered in many national and international newspapers and websites. Those successful stories of Amna, Rola, and Yasmin is just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many untold similar stories about the honorable Yemeni women and girls who are contributing on a daily basis to secure food for their household, who contribute for improving the agricultural sector, and who contribute effectively for the country food security as a whole, in such hard circumstances and extraordinary time for Yemen. The successful stories of Amina, Rola, and Yasmin, and thousands of women and girls in Yemen, is a clear evidence that our country is not simply a war-torn country. Yemen is a deep-rooted civilization that was ruled by women in its golden ages. And the story of Queen of Sheba is very famous and popular. Actually, in that painting behind me in the banner, one of our painters imagined the Queen of Sheba, and it is always my very preferable image or background to be with. So I'm so proud of my queen. But our civilizational contributions to the world of commodities are also no less historic. Take the case of coffee. We have been dealing with coffee, world's second largest commodity, even before it became a commodity. The coffee drink gained popularity before 1500 in Yemen, where coffee was planted in the mountains and became traded good. Much famed coffee named mocha or macha in Yemeni way of pronunciation, is indeed the name of a port and city in Yemen, which have been provided high quality coffee to the world. So every day when you drink your mocha, please remember the Yemeni macha and Yemenis. Those successful stories of Yemeni women are another clear evidence that the spirit of Queens of Yemen is still very much alive today. Similarly, there are millions of success stories from all around the world where women play a prominent role in the commodity sector. All those women around the world are working very hard to provide us with all the essential commodities from farm to fork. Without commodities, we go thirsty, hungry, homeless, immobile, and without much needed technologies as well. Bilal, if I'm taking too long, please inform me about time. Distinguished colleagues, before I dive into the theme, Inspire Inclusion, as this year's theme for the International Women's Day, allow me to revisit the world we are now in. Very sadly, we are passing an unprecedented time in the history of modern day humanity. where millions of women and girls are increasingly suffering in war zones, including Europe, my region, Middle East, and Africa, and subjected to systematic killings along with all kinds of gender-based violations. Meanwhile, as many as 811 million people, or 10% of the world's population, go to bed hungry each night. 161 million more than the previous year. Obviously, the great majority of those in poverty are women, girls, and children. On the other hand, in a world facing multiple crises, including wars, that are putting immense pressure on our communities and our conscience, achieving gender equality is more vital than ever. Ensuring women's and girls' rights across all aspects of life is the only way to secure prosperous and just economies and a healthy planet for future generations. This is why we find this year's theme for International Women's Day, Inspire Inclusion, so timely. And I would urge you all to pay more attention to the issue of agri-commodities, not simply because it beholds the lever of our food security, it is also because without inclusion, almost 2.5 billion smallholders shall continue to endure a level of poverty that all of us could not even think of, let alone living it through. Smallholder farmers, typically operating on small plots of land, play a significant role in global food production. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, smallholders are responsible for producing up to 80% of the food consumed in Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. Yet, despite their crucial role, smallholder farmers, particularly women, often face numerous challenges that limit their productivity and livelihoods. Gender inequalities pervade every aspect of smallholders' agricultural, from access to land and resources to participation in decision-making and control over income. In many rural communities, women are primarily responsible for agricultural labor, yet they frequently lack secure rights to land and to other productive assets. This insecurity not only undermines women's economic empowerment, but also hampers agricultural productivity and food security. Moreover, women farmers often have limited access to essential resources such as credit, inputs, and extension services. Without access to finance and technical support, women are unable to adopt modern farming practices, improve productivity, and that's what was you referring to, dear Ambassador Bilal, or adapt to changing environmental conditions. This perpetuates a cycle of poverty and food insecurity that disproportionately affects women and their families. Even in Europe, women are not free from the kind of inequalities that we see in the global south. The percentage of women who own the farm in Europe varies considerably by member states, from just 5% in the Netherlands to 45% in Latvia and Lithuania, averaging 29%. This is in large part because farms across Europe continue to be predominantly inherited by men. Distinguished colleagues, the unequal burden of unpaid care and domestic work further exacerbates the challenges faced by women in agriculture. Women are not only responsible for tending the crops and livestock, but also, as you all know, for household chores. childcare, and fetching water and firewood. This double burden of work leaves women with very little time and energy actually to invest in agricultural activities or pursue income-generating opportunities in ways that will really make a difference. Studies have shown that closing the gender gap in agriculture could lift millions of people out of poverty and reduce hunger and malnutrition worldwide. Granting women equal access to agricultural resources as men could potentially boost production on women-owned farms in developing nations by 20 to 30%. Such an increase could lead to a total rise in agricultural output in these countries by approximately 2.5 to 4%. Consequently, this improvement has the potential to decrease the global hunger levels by an estimated 12 to 17%, translating to a reduction of 100 to 150 million individuals suffering from hunger. Huge number. At the same time, one of the most significant barriers that women farmers encounter is the lack of access to finance. The key challenges in achieving gender equality by 2030 is an alarming lack of financing with a staggering $360 billion annual deficit in spending on gender equality measures. Nonetheless, here I wish to commend the role of the CFC led by His Excellency Ambassador Sheikh Mohammed Bilal for their role in women empowerment and inclusion. And in this regard, number of CFC activities plays a crucial role in empowering female smallholder farmers. Accordingly, I believe that investing in women-led agricultural enterprises stakeholders can foster inclusive economic growth, advance gender equality, and contribute to sustainable development in rural communities. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues, before concluding, there is an African proverb that says, "It takes a village to raise a child." We invite you all to join the communities of all those commodities producing, working women and men to make it worth having a guilt-free meal or a dress or a cup of coffee or a bar of chocolate, free from deprivations and unfair practices like child labor, deforestation, and climate externalities that keep our air free from dust and guilt. Swimming against the current, women have had to raise their voices to get their voices heard. Therefore, let us work together to go far and beyond to help those working women raise their voices and aspiration for a truly human life. In closing, let us remember that the journey towards gender equality is long and difficult, but it is a journey worth taking. Let us stand together in solidarity, united in our commitment to building a world where every woman and girl can live with dignity, respect, and equal opportunities. I wish to thank you and wish you all a happy International Women's Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Ghanem. I think we can all agree that was an incredibly insightful overview, and we appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today. We will now look at how gender and women's rights reflect in our work in the commodity sector. I would like to invite Ms. Anna Herrera, team lead of CASA Technical Assistance Facility, managed by TechnoServe, to tell us how technical assistance can empower women and drive prosperity in agricultural commodity value chains. Ms. Herrera, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Paula, and His and Her Excellency. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to present today and actually give an example of how CFC is investing in women and creating more inclusive business models and inclusive strategies across the world. CFC is part of a technical assistance facility called CASA. This technical assistance facility is really meant to drive inclusive business models and mobilize investments in agriculture. So my presentation today is really meant to provide a very practical example of how we can include women in our supply chains, in our business models, and how CFC is actually contributing to that by showing an example of a CFC investee called Keynote in the Philippines. Please let me know if you can all see my screen, Paula, and that this works. Great. The presentation today will be broken down into 3 main areas. I will first give you all an overview of what this technical assistance facility is all about. We will talk about our gender approach and how this is actually applied in practice. So as I mentioned, CFC is part of the CASA Technical Assistance Facility that is a £10 million fund program since 2019. The main objective of the facility is to drive investments in agriculture, and particularly inclusive business models. The facility is managed by TechnoServe, so we are an international development organization, and we are managing the facility for CASA. What is a technical assistance facility? Perhaps I could start with that. A technical assistance facility is really meant to provide TA for agribusinesses. So how we do it and how we develop our pipeline is we identify investors. Again, CFC is one of our very strategic partners in the facility. And these are investors that have aligned development impact interests, such as gender inclusion. We identify businesses that are ready for technical support. And these types of support can be various things. The first phase is really identifying a business case. So is there a commercial case for that business to actually implement an inclusive business model? So I will actually go into that in detail and how gender makes a commercial case as well, or inclusive gender practices, how makes a commercial case. And we also provide actual operational or core business support to de-risk some of the initiatives that we have. After that, we provide and help execute technical assistance programs and operationalize these inclusive business models to really drive impact for smallholder farmers, in this case, or bottom of the pyramid suppliers. So particularly, this really is meant to lead to increases in incremental income and economic development. CASA TAF is implementing this facility across the world. Today, I'm going to talk about the Philippines, but actually we're implementing across value chains and across geographies. To date, we have about 27 countries where an agribusiness is supported across the facility. CFC itself has a lot of investees spread across the world. We are also spread across value chains, so we don't have a very specific value chain that we're focusing on. One thing that we focus on is really the inclusive business model, right? That we are trying to drive at. Our mandate as a facility is to help at least 40 agribusinesses. And for CFC right now, we have 2 agribusinesses that we have supported so far. Overall, the program is meant to really drive about 7 million pounds of incremental income increases to over 6,000 smallholder farmers. Now, when it comes to gender, Her Excellency earlier talked about really some of the glaring statistics that face women and put women into much of the greater discrimination and a lot of the constraints. Some of the statistics are here in front of you now. I won't go into detail, but really I can't overemphasize the need to focus on inclusion of women or investment in women to really drive development across the world. How we do it in practice with agribusinesses in our supply chain and the companies that we support is really promoting gender responsive practices. So these are the elements that you see on your left. And being able to link these gender responsive practices into very direct commercial benefits. Oftentimes when we talk about companies and when we talk about agribusinesses, the gender lens or the gender responsive business practices are not that apparent. However, if we try and demonstrate these types of practices leading to commercial benefits, whether it's about more suppliers, increases in product volumes, increased and improved quality, or loyalty, that is the kind of language that really resonates with agribusinesses that we work with. And so our gender approach really has the business case front and center when we talk about gender inclusive practices or gender responsive business practices. Practically, how we do this with the partner businesses is our approach that you see on the left. Each time we engage in agribusiness, we help them through what we're calling a gender diagnostic process. And during this gender diagnostic process, we basically look at 4 areas. So these are the areas on the right. So we look at supply chain participation. So whether or not they actively recruit women and men suppliers in their chain, whether or not they actually register women, and whether they have inclusive participation criteria when they start rolling out programs or procurement processes. We also look at business performance. So this means, are they delivering resources, training, services to both women and men farmers in their supply chain? We also look at benefits and impact, and these are direct benefits such as financial benefits. So is the company actually facilitating direct payments to women, for example, or contracts that are under women's names? And then finally, we look at the overall company, the organization, and how there is equity within the organization itself. So the promotion of women senior leaders in the company, the commitment to work safety, and mechanisms for grievance mechanisms as well. After we assess this, so this is the first step, we basically prioritize gender responsive practices along with the company and help these companies adopt the practices through various technical assistance initiatives. So how it actually happens out in the field, I'd like to give an example of Keynote in the Philippines. So Keynote is a cocoa sourcing company. It is also involved in other crops, but cocoa is the biggest business for the company. They are working with about 12,000 farmers in the southern part of the Philippines in Davao, and have really been committed to help farmers, smallholder farmers in their supply chain. The problem that Keynote faces more broadly, right, is actually decreases in productivity and the consistent low yields of the cocoa farmers that they're working with. And in this project, together with CFC, we identified or designed an inclusive business plan that will really help Keynote develop a program that will increase yields, and promote good agricultural practices across its farmers. So this particular program is what we call cacaopreneur, or a play in the entrepreneur word. But the cacaopreneurs are meant to really assist smallholder farmers, so both women and men, to develop farm plans or farm development plans that will lead to increases in yields and increases in income. And at the same time, generate additional revenue for them as an agent or as an entrepreneur. The overall goal of this project is really to target at least 50% women in the supply chain, and to have an incremental increase of about $541 per farmer per annum. Now, how this gender particularly plays out in this project. So with Kennemer, we basically applied our gender approach and our gender diagnostic tool. I realize this is quite a busy slide, but please bear with me. On the left side, what you're seeing is we applied those 4 areas. We assessed the 4 areas that I mentioned. So from supply chain participation to organizational equity, and basically produced a scorecard for the business to help them assess where they are as a company, looking at gender responsive practices. After the assessment, so what you see on the left are their strengths and their weaknesses, right? So for example, some of their strengths include they're actually actively including women in their supply chain. They are delivering different types of trainings and resources, and they are actually registering women in their supply chain. We also identified some areas for improvement. So there's very limited access to direct benefits for women. There's also limited or almost no monitoring of benefits for both women and men. And so as a facility, and also together with CFC, we've identified some interventions, and that's the items on your right, on how we can help this business actually drive inclusivity, gender inclusivity. And these are some examples that came out of the process with the business. So first is really developing a gender strategy alongside the business case and the business model in the Cacaopreneur program. The commitment to target 50% or to recruit 50% women, not only for farmers, but also for the field officers or the field agents who will be training and assisting farmers in the supply chain. We've also identified to develop targeted training content for women, and creating systems to actually help facilitate women's participation and also track women's performance in the business. So this is an example of how CFC and the CASA Technical Assistance Facility promotes gender responsive practices across businesses and investees in their portfolio. I hope this gives you a glimpse of how we can really promote gender in practice across supply chains. Paula, I'll turn over to you now. Paula, you're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. It was very interesting to learn a little bit more in terms of what CASA are doing to support one of CFC's investees in terms of improving gender within its TA projects. Great. I think at this point we can take some time for questions. I believe perhaps I saw one already in the comments. Let me see if I can find it. Yes. So a question asking if CFC is working in the field of improving nutrition in the developing world, especially for children and women. Perhaps Ambassador Bilal, you can take that question.
Thank you, Paula. I know where it is coming from because We are in a family that's we try to do things in a way so that we can call it truly comprehensive. And as we are all familiar with the acute problem of malnutrition, so mostly in the developing world, I think it's alarming. And simply providing meals is not enough, because if they don't provide enough nutrient at their formative age, the children, will not have enough energy or their real worth of life to do the things that we expect them to do. And from us in the CFC, we are really encouraging people to submit and come forward to us with that kind of innovative projects where we can do these things together, not only producing, because one of the things here in the CFC we actively try to do is how can we bring productivity so that there is higher income. And in this way of doing things, we always try to pay attention to this issue of nutrition where possible. Just to give you one example, one of our investment that was we made in Kenya and Shalem, initially they are only processing sorghum, and we invested in them to buy for capital machineries. But during the time of COVID, when they are in a very hardship, and they came back to us for new fund, and we funded that, and we requested them, since you're going back, why don't you try to fortify this product with vitamins and minerals? And it was COVID time. They said that, look, we are willing to do, but we don't know how to do unless you help. So we got some partners and we made them it possible for them. And the moment they got it fortified, they qualified as a supplier to the World Food Program in Kenya. And that kind of get a whole spin to the whole business. And fast forward, I think in September 2022, the same businesswoman who was so keen to get our money came back to us and said, Ambassador, here's your money, take back your cash. We are going back home because local bank is ready to fund us. So yes, we did it a little bit, but we would like to do it much bigger way. And those of you who are listening to this, please, if you have any innovative ideas that we can do, match this both innovations, both nutrition and productivity together, we'd love to do that. Over to you, Paula.
Thank you, Ambassador. I see another question asked by Ms. Langhammer, directed at Anna. What about the success factors for implementing the gender project with Kennemer, and what are the key lessons learned from this?
Ms. Langhammer, thanks for that. Question. So we're just about to start the gender initiative with Kennemer. So definitely we'll share the lessons learned later on. But in terms of success factors that we've seen across businesses in the portfolio in terms of implementing gender initiative, one is really the ownership of key people within the agribusiness. So like other initiatives, having in a sense, a gender champion within the business is one of the success indicators and success factors. We've seen that not only is it important to have one champion, but to actually have a couple of champions across the organization. And when that happens, the gender inclusivity almost becomes really a natural approach when implementing different types of programs. The other success factor, especially in the beginning, an important piece is to be able to assign very practical targets around gender as well, right? So, for example, earlier I was mentioning a 50% target of including women suppliers or registering women suppliers in the chain. And that really increases the teams or the businesses' awareness, right? And being intentional on these kinds of initiatives. So these are some success factors. And then finally, maybe a third one that I also think of and see as we roll this out is once we're actually able to recruit women farmers or women field officers, being them being the main promoter of these kinds of businesses across their peers is also a very important element in rolling this out. I hope that answers the question.
It does. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. I see a hand up from Ms. Katuruza. Perhaps you can unmute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It's most educative. I would like to kindly request that the first slide on the presentation be rebeamed. I missed it. I wanted to take a picture of it. Can it be rebeamed, please?
Well, I'm aware of the fact that I think we expect to make the presentation available on the CFC website shortly. Does that suffice, or do you prefer that we put it up quickly just now?
If it is not too much trouble, please rebeam it, because it set the context of the whole discussion.
Great. Of course, Anna, perhaps could you do that? Great. Was this the slide you were looking for?
No, is that the first one? I think there's another one.
For gender, this is the first slide. Is this it, Angelica?
When the presentation started, there's a slide that was there, the very first, when the presentation started.
This is the very first slide.
Yeah, the second one, please. Really? Oh, okay. That's not what I was looking for. I saw something else. Anyway.
In any case, we'll make the whole presentation available to all the participants.
Yes, it will be available on the CFC website shortly, so you'll be able to access it there. Perhaps then I don't see any other hands up just now. Perhaps I can ask a question. Sorry, I'm hearing a little bit of echo. No, it's okay, it's gone now. Perhaps I can ask a question then. So maybe a little bit both for Ambassador Ghanem and also for Anna. In 2015, McKinsey estimated that fully closing the gender gap would add $28 trillion to global GDP by 2025. However, the World Economic Forum has recently concluded that closing the gender gap will require 257 years at the pace we're currently going at. I think, Ambassador Ghanem, I'd be interested to learn what you think organizations like the CFC can do to contribute more to closing this gender gap. And then I think taking that further for Anna, also, I mean, working in technical assistance facility management myself, what can technical assistance do as well in that regard? Perhaps Ambassador Ghanem, we start with you.
Thank you for the question, although it is a bit difficult one. It's not an easy to, because, I mean, also the situation is changing in a very unprecedented way. One of the main achievements of our era that we thought we had is the peaceful era, up to a certain level at least we had for a long time. And the cooperation between countries, and we see this becoming less and less. And in my opinion, gender gap and women's rights will be impacted very harshly because of the current changes in the world, the more wars we are facing. So this is why we need either for agricultural aspects, but also for other kinds of empowerments, economically, politically, socially also. I mean, in my country, I see how this war is also affecting very much the position of women among the society. So again, organizations like CFC, I can't say what you can do, but I can urge you to do all your best to bring all those stakeholders who who are interested in bringing women into a better position to work together and more seriously, because it is becoming difficult seeing the changes all around the world. Yeah. I think that's my answer. I hope we get the answer from the CFC.
Yes, it was a big question. Thank you. Anna, perhaps over to you, maybe from a TA perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Paula. I think from technical assistance implementation, right? I think so. A couple of things. One is really being able to support businesses like Kennemer who are actually quite keen to adopt gender responsive practices, right? So being able to find and encourage these types of businesses and continue to invest in these kinds of businesses is one. The second piece is really showcasing these types of inclusive business models, right? Because I think oftentimes when we talk to agribusinesses, they're really looking at, well, what are the things that have worked and what are the things that can be practically implemented in the field? And so being able to showcase these models is actually helpful. And then the third piece is, again, the commercial case, making the commercial case that gender inclusivity actually does have that benefit to businesses and to companies, and being able to share that data across businesses. I think CFC can actually play a very instrumental role in that one.
Thanks, Anna. I couldn't agree more on the commercial viability aspects. I think in terms of implementing technical assistance projects, there has to really be the buy-in from the company, and you really have to show the commercial viability of doing things such as integrating gender more into your operations. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. Great. Any further questions before we wrap up for today? I see no one else with their hands up. No. Okay, great. Then, ladies and gentlemen, this is all we have time for today, and we will conclude. I'd like to give the floor to the Managing Director of the CFC for any final remarks. Ambassador Bilal, over to you.
Thank you, Paula, and thank you, Excellency Sahar Ghanem. Thank you, Ms. Anna Herrera. I think you truly kind of hit the bullseye to bring it to the level of smallholders and investment and the importance of concessional finance. And I think we cannot say it loud enough. I know there are people in this audience who can make a difference. We are now facing a time when our demand is over the roof, but our supply is painfully falling far short of them what people would like us to do for them. But the problem that we're dealing with, it really needs not only hundreds or thousands, maybe millions of CFC. So if one CFC cannot try to match up to this lagging supply, I think we all failing as a group. And from us, we can tell you with all amount of our honesty and sincerity is that with our limited resources, we are really, really trying our best to make a difference. But everything has a limit. And the main thing, because we are dealing with a community who are in a vicious circle, because they don't have the resources, they don't have the money, they cannot buy the inputs. And they cannot buy the inputs, they cannot have a higher productivity. And they cannot have the higher productivity, and they cannot have the good income. The only way that you can break this cycle is infusion of the finance. And this is where I think we seek your attention and truly draw your attention. And the best way to do it, what we call here in the CFC, is through humanizing the value chain. Whatever you are buying, whatever you are using, eating, drinking, be a conscious consumer and make sure, ask yourself that whatever the price that I'm paying, how much is going back to the farmers? Is it good enough for them? If I pay such a high price, why so many people are still in poverty? And there are now signs, there are technologies that we can really make a difference, because now we can trace things at a farm level. And another issue I'd like to highlight is that we have only one world, one planet. The division between the global north and the global south is only for our understanding and to deal with our differences in a way so that we can come closer to each other. CFC, which is based in this innovation-rich European mainland, we are in a better place to take the high-end technologies and innovations to the global south and meet the demand of higher productivity as well as income and bring them to the closer together. And this is why we have been also, before I conclude, would like to invite you for our upcoming webinars on the International Day for the Alleviation of Poverty. And we will have it on the 17th October. And please mark your calendar and join us, because this is the only 2 days we try to pay attention so that we can do more together. I thank you all. Thank Ms. Fargan. You really touch our heart with the kind of, I think, women character that you presented us with Yamin and with Anna and Yasmin. I think in our world, we have Ruth Keynote, Jess and Maria and others, but we want to do it much, much more than what we are doing. So if you are in a position to make a difference, please make an outreach. Let us do together much more than what we're doing. Once again, thank you all for joining us, and we'll keep the discussion on. Thank you.